Have you ever heard of someone so devoted to a basketball team that even a life-threatening heart condition could not break her spirit? It might sound unbelievable, but this story is about one remarkable woman whose passion inspired one of the greatest athletes of all time, Michael Jordan. What happens next will both shock and uplift you. You will never see it coming. Tell me where you are tuning in from, and if you are looking for unstoppable motivation to pursue your dreams, subscribe now to Motivation for Success. Evelyn Carter was 84 years old, residing in the spirited heart of Milltown, an energetic city famous for its bone-chilling winters yet genuinely warm people. Despite her years, she held an unbreakable devotion to the Milltown Comets, a professional basketball team she had cheered on for nearly 4 decades. Through furious blizzards and random blackouts, and ever since a promising rookie by the name of Michael Jordan first laced up on that court, she never once missed a televised Comets game. For Evelyn, missing a Comets matchup simply wasn't an option. In her tattered spiral notebook, she meticulously noted every point scored, every rebound collected, and every keen observation she could make. To her, those players were more than strangers on a screen, they felt like extended family. She shared in the heartbreak of each narrow defeat and reveled in the euphoric highs of every victory parade as though she were right there on the court with them. Evelyn's home was a small, cozy one-bedroom apartment in a tranquil neighborhood. Inside those walls, however, was a colorful mosaic of Comets memorabilia. Newspaper clippings and photos of the team, some capturing the hoisting of hard-earned trophies, others featuring new talents arriving with fresh jerseys, covered the living room. But the crown jewel of her beloved shrine was a pristine Comets cap from 1984, resting inside a clear display case, waiting patiently for one signature, Michael Jordan's. Though age had softened her pace, nothing had diminished Evelyn's passion for the team. In fact, it seemed to grow stronger with every passing season. She loved sharing that passion with her granddaughter, Christine, who would jokingly tease her, saying Evelyn adored basketball more than anything else in the world. And in her own way, Christine absorbed that same fierce loyalty, cheering for the Comets from the time she was little. It was during a routine checkup that her doctor, Dr. Morrison, gently cautioned her about worrying signs of a weakening heart. She promised him she would take care of herself, but she found those medications drained her enthusiasm, leaving her too sleepy to fully savor each Comets game. Believing that her sheer love for the sport could carry her through, Evelyn began neglecting her prescriptions. Eventually, the inevitable caught up with her. One afternoon, shortly before a pivotal Comets tip-off, Evelyn's heart finally buckled under the pressure. Christine discovered her grandmother collapsed on the living room floor, right in front of the TV where she had been ready to watch her beloved team. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, and Dr. Morrison found dangerously clogged arteries. Christine clutched Evelyn's hand in the emergency room. Although Evelyn insisted she just needed some rest, Christine and Dr. Morrison both realized it was far more serious. Immediate surgery was the only solution to stave off a life-threatening heart attack, and they scheduled it just 2 days before a heavily hyped Comets home game. For the first time in 39 years, Evelyn was forced to confront the idea that she might have to miss a match. As tears welled up, she felt as though a piece of her very identity was slipping away. Every tip-off had become a vivid reminder of her late husband, Leon, the man who had shown her the magic in basketball so many years ago, and now, it seemed that magic might be put on hold when she needed it most. In the hospital, Evelyn's world felt smaller than ever. Bleak corridors replaced the vibrant basketball posters she kept at home. She dreaded missing the upcoming Comets game more than the surgery itself. She'd survived blizzards, blackouts, and personal heartbreaks for nearly 4 decades without ever missing a tip-off. But this time, her weakened heart couldn't keep up. She feared losing her only unbroken link to Leon's memory. Desperate to lift her spirits, Christine brought a handheld radio, hoping Evelyn could at least hear the game. A nurse named Alicia quickly shut down that idea. No radios in the recovery ward. Evelyn sank further into despair. Dr. Morrison insisted on immediate surgery. "If we wait, you could have a severe attack," he warned. Fighting tears, she realized the jokes she once made about dying mid-court were no longer funny. She was about to miss a game from a hospital bed. After surgery, Evelyn woke to the disconcerting pulse of her heart monitor. She was alive, but the inevitable had happened. Her flawless streak of never missing a Comets game was officially over. Days passed in that unfamiliar hospital room, with Dr. Morrison declaring she'd need more time to stabilize. Pleading made no difference, doctor's orders were final. Christine, scrolling through her phone, admitted people were already talking about Evelyn online. A local reporter, Ryan Nichols, had heard about the longtime fan who'd never missed a Comets game, until now. When he arrived, Evelyn reluctantly agreed to a brief interview. Ryan seemed amazed by her old game day notebooks, each page brimming with stats and stories, even the night she listened by candlelight during a blackout. She never imagined her tale would matter beyond her neighborhood. Yet soon, staff members whispered in the halls, peering into her room with new respect. Then Dr. Morrison reappeared with a formal administrator, Robert Clark, who offered to move Evelyn to a VIP suite at no extra cost. Though it unnerved her, Christine urged her to accept. The next morning, security guards in suits patrolled her new room. Christine stayed tight-lipped, leaving Evelyn restless and full of questions. Finally, a senior administrator arrived, excited to explain that the Milltown Times had published Evelyn's story on the front page, labeling her the Comets' most devoted fan. Then came an even bigger revelation: someone claiming to represent Michael Jordan himself had called to ask about her. Evelyn's heart fluttered the instant she heard his name. Since the day Michael Jordan burst onto the basketball scene, she had idolized him. He was the reason Leon had taken her to that old sports arena decades ago, calling Jordan the future of basketball. She told herself it might be just a rumor or a marketing gimmick, but the hope in her chest refused to fade. She spent the next day teetering between excitement and exhaustion, each beep of the hospital machines heightening her restlessness. Christine kept answering cryptic phone calls, leaving Evelyn even more on edge. By evening, a wash of lavender and gold sky fell outside her window, but no real answers came. That night, she closed her eyes and pictured Leon beside her in his favorite Comets jersey, gently nudging her to stay strong. But she was alone in the hush of that VIP hospital room, resisting the urge to wander the halls for any scrap of news. Early the following morning, the entire corridor broke into whispers and hurried footsteps. Flashbulbs lit up the frosted glass. Dr. Morrison slipped into her room, visibly excited. "Ms. Carter," he said quietly, "you have a special visitor." Evelyn's heart pounded as she pushed herself upright. Robert Clark, the hospital administrator, stepped aside to welcome a tall figure with an unmistakable presence. Evelyn knew that silhouette instantly: Michael Jordan. No fanfare, just a warm smile as he approached her bed. "Ms. Carter," he said, "I hear you had quite a streak until you landed in here." Her voice caught in her throat, tears filling her eyes. Christine stood nearby with her phone raised, recording it all. Jordan's gaze fell on the 1984 Comets cap locked inside its glass case. Was that the cap she'd been saving? She nodded, speechless. Gently, he removed it from the case, signed it with a pen he'd brought, and placed it on her head. "Looks even better on you than in that display," he said softly. In that moment, the room pulsed with the same electricity as a championship game in its final seconds. They spoke for nearly an hour, about the heartbreaking losses, the narrow victories, and how she and Leon had shared every thrilling moment together. Michael Jordan listened intently to every word, while Christine's camera captured tears in her eyes, the awe on Evelyn's face, and the legacy of love and dedication filling that tiny hospital room. Before Michael Jordan said his farewells, he presented Evelyn with a sealed envelope. Inside was an invitation to a special charity exhibition game featuring legendary players from across different eras. He wanted her to come as a VIP guest. Once she fully recovered, she gaped at the elegant lettering reading Ms. Evelyn Carter, our honorary guest, in the center. After the door shut behind him, Evelyn realized she was holding her breath. She exhaled slowly, her eyes lingering on the freshly signed cap. She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude that almost outweighed the pain of missing that single Comets game. The unthinkable had happened. Michael Jordan had found out about her story and personally visited her. Though she had seen many wonders in her lifetime, this moment felt as if it had cosmic significance. As the hospital staff cleared out and Christine started messaging family about what had just happened, Evelyn looked at the city skyline from her window. She smiled beyond the tears, realizing that life held unexpected triumphs no championship ring could match. When she was finally discharged, Evelyn returned home to a flood of cards and letters from her neighbors, her church congregation, and random strangers across Milltown. They had read the article and heard about Michael Jordan's visit. Some even said they felt newly inspired to face their own challenges with that same unwavering spirit. Evelyn decided to approach her recovery with the discipline of an athlete in training. She took her medication on time and followed Dr. Morrison's advice meticulously. Christine was relieved to see her grandmother investing in her own health. She teased her by saying, "Grandma, you want to be strong enough to meet Jordan again, don't you?" Evelyn simply smiled, hugging her granddaughter. Weeks past the charity game in which she was invited to appear grew closer. She did every recommended exercise to strengthen her heart and often reread the invitation carefully pinned to her refrigerator. She would gently place her fingers over the crisp stationery as if verifying that this was all real. At last the morning of the big event arrived. A shiny black sedan came to fetch her from her apartment courtesy of the event organizers. The driver greeted her with a respectful nod as she sat in the back seat, her newly signed Comets cap resting in her lap. She could not stop thinking about how Leon would have laughed with joy if he could see her in this moment. As the sedan pulled up to the massive sports arena, a hush overcame Evelyn. The building dwarfed her, making her recall the first time she had sat way up high in the bleachers. Now red carpet ropes guided her along a path reserved for VIPs. She noticed people in suits wearing official badges directing cameras her way. Her heart raced, but in a good, exhilarating way. Inside, the event staff escorted her to a private suite. The glass wall overlooked the basketball court where legends warmed up under the bright lights. She recognized faces from all generations of the game, including a handful of newer stars. Across the arena in the stands, thousands of fans had gathered to watch this star-studded charity exhibition. Suddenly the door to her suite swung open and Michael Jordan stepped in wearing a polished blazer. He gave her a wide grin and said, "Ms. Carter, you made it." She saw other legendary players behind him, including a few from the Comets' biggest championship runs. They greeted her as if she were a lifelong friend. She clutched the handle of her wheelchair, stunned by the easy warmth in their smiles. Jordan guided Evelyn through the backstage area, introducing her to even more iconic names. Some had soared in the 1990s, some in the 2000s. She could barely keep her composure as each shook her hand, praising her unwavering support over and over. She shared the tale of how she never missed a game until her heart gave her no choice. Then Jordan led her to the edge of the main court. The scoreboard hung overhead, the shiny parquet floor reflecting bright arena lights. The seats were filling up quickly. The event announcer signaled that it was time for a special introduction. "Evelyn Carter, before we begin tonight, we want to shine a spotlight on the dedicated individuals who make this sport great, not just the players, but the fans who never quit this year. We learned about a woman whose 39-year streak was only broken by a serious heart condition. She is here tonight as our special guest." The entire arena erupted in applause as the spotlight fell on Evelyn. She felt heat rising to her cheeks. She had dreamt of big celebrations for her beloved team, but never imagined she would be the center of one, surrounded by basketball legends. She wheeled forward. People cheered louder as they realized who she was. Michael Jordan leaned into the microphone describing the day he came across her story. He spoke with deep admiration. He called Evelyn not just a devoted fan but a powerful symbol of hope, dedication and love, reminiscent of what drew him to the sport in the first place, that unstoppable drive to keep pushing forward no matter what obstacles appear on the court or in life. He nodded to one of the staffers who lowered a small projection screen near the scoreboard. A short video montage played capturing key highlights of Evelyn's life as reported by Ryan Nichols. Scenes showed her hospital stay, the old newspaper clippings featuring her name, the spiral notebooks brimming with game stats, and her glass-encased Comets cap. The audience gasped, and the footage revealed her living room plastered with decades of Comets mementos. Then the video concluded with a photo of her hugging Michael Jordan in her hospital room. Overwhelmed, Evelyn bowed her head briefly to wipe away tears. The crowd responded with a wave of applause that intensified as Michael Jordan lifted her hand and declared, "She is living proof that real fans and real passion never fade." At that moment, Coach Daniels, one of Jordan's longtime associates, approached with a binder in his hands. Evelyn recognized her own handwriting peeking from transparent plastic sheets. She felt her heart skip. She realized these were some of the letters she had painstakingly written to the Comets organization over the years, letters that had contained both encouragement and constructive insights about plays and strategies. She had long believed no one really read them. Coach Daniels admitted that her words had indeed made their way around the coaching staff, and in certain pivotal games they even adapted some of her suggestions. She covered her mouth in astonishment, recalling how she'd send those letters regularly after critical matchups. She had never expected them to be noticed, let alone acted upon. Michael Jordan turned to her, his tone gentle and confidential. "Everyone is talking about your devotion, Ms. Carter, but I don't think they realized that you were also analyzing the game with a coach's eye." He gestured to the binder. "People like you keep the spirit of basketball alive." Once again, applause filled the arena, and Evelyn felt a joyful ache in her chest. She visualized Leon smiling from somewhere beyond, proud that his wife had not just watched the game but contributed to it in ways she never suspected. After that, the charity exhibition kicked off. Pairs of legendary players teamed with rising stars. The game was less about fierce competition and more about entertainment and good causes, but for Evelyn, each bounce of the ball, each swish of the net soared directly into her heart. She wore her signed cap clasping her hands as she watched from a reserved seat near the baseline. Cheers thundered each time someone completed an alley-oop or a trick shot. Evelyn found herself exchanging odd glances with Christine, who had a courtside pass beside her. A wave of gratitude welled in the older woman, so strong she could hardly contain it. Here she was in good health, with an entire arena celebrating not just the players' achievements but her devotion as well. She realized that sometimes life weaves patterns we cannot foresee. She never knew that her heartfelt letters and unwavering presence made such a ripple. When the final buzzer rang, the arena lights dimmed for the post-game presentation. Michael Jordan took the microphone again. He thanked everyone for supporting the charity and recognized the players. He then pointed to the scoreboard where in bold letters read, "Thank you, Evelyn Carter, our true champion." The crowd cheered with such passion that Evelyn could not keep her tears in check. She pressed one hand over her heart, feeling it beat strong and steady. The doctors might have feared for her health if they had been there, but in that instance her heart felt rejuvenated, more alive than ever. She had confronted her greatest fear, letting her streak end, but discovered that real devotion does not fade because of a single missed game. Later, the Comets organization offered to unveil a small plaque with her name at their home arena, paying tribute to fans who embody love for the game. She accepted graciously as another swirl of paparazzi cameras captured every moment. In the days that followed, Evelyn returned home with the best kind of exhaustion, the kind that comes from overwhelming joy. She stared at her Comets-themed living room for a while, letting the memories come. She ran her fingertips over the binder of letters which Coach Daniels had gifted back to her. She felt a deep sense of completion. She would never regret missing that one game, because in losing her perfect attendance she gained something far more profound, a real and personal connection to the team she loved. Word spread quickly across Milltown. Soon neighbors and strangers popped by to express how her story had touched them. A teenager told her that he had been inspired to pursue his own dreams in sports. Another older gentleman admitted he had been neglecting his health, but after hearing about her hospital scare he decided to take better care of himself. One evening after an intense physical therapy session, Evelyn felt a hint of sadness. She dearly wished Leon had been there to see it all. She took out an old photograph of them from the 1980s, both wearing Comets t-shirts. At their first game they were high up in the stands, but the smiles on their faces told the entire story. She whispered that she hoped he was proud because everything she did was for both of them. When the Comets advanced into a crucial playoff run that year, Evelyn enjoyed the games with a new perspective. Instead of notepads crammed with stats, she allowed herself to savor every moment. She realized the real treasure was not just the knowledge of every rebound or the unstoppable pride of never skipping a tip-off. It was the joy shared with loved ones, the excitement of each pass, each dribble, and the memories formed across decades. Time drifted forward and Evelyn found a soft peace within her. She realized she had become the Comets' beloved grandmother. The team occasionally sent her thank you notes. Players recognized her from viral photos around the city. She also wrote new letters, but with a lighter heart. She no longer felt desperate to be heard. She simply wanted to celebrate the game with the same unstoppable passion she had always held. Christine noticed this change as well. She gently teased her grandmother that she was somehow more relaxed about basketball now, more playful and happy. She saw Evelyn's fervor shift from single-minded intensity to a bright, deep love that had no conditions. The next time Michael Jordan returned to Milltown for a charity golf tournament, he visited Evelyn at her apartment. They shared tea in her living room while he admired the vast array of Comets memorabilia. He playfully pointed out articles that captured headlines from his earliest days and a few that commemorated legendary battles on the court. Evelyn sat there hardly believing she had grown comfortable hosting her all-time hero. She remembered the timid hospital patient who nearly fainted when he first appeared at her door. When Jordan took his leave, he gave her a final piece of advice. He said, "Sometimes a real champion is the one who never lets tough breaks define them. They find a way to give love to the game or whatever passion they hold, even if they have to do it from a hospital bed or an old recliner." He grinned at her as he closed the door behind him, leaving Evelyn with yet another cherished memory. In that smile and those words she found the essence of the journey she had been on for nearly 4 decades. Life was not about maintaining a perfect record or never stumbling. It was about showing up wholeheartedly and staying true to what you love even when fate throws obstacles in your path. That evening after Jordan departed, Evelyn stared at the now signed cap from 1984 and quietly thanked Leon for bringing her to that first game so long ago. She also thanked herself for having the courage to keep the faith. She might have broken her streak, but she had won an experience she would carry forever. In the months and years that followed, she never regained the full stamina she once had, but she did not let that stop her from celebrating the Comets. She became a fixture at community events, championing local initiatives in Milltown and volunteering at the same hospital that had saved her life, encouraging older patients with heart conditions. She reminded them that no dream is impossible to sustain if love is guiding you. From time to time, the Comets organization invited her to speak at fan gatherings. She shared stories of heartbreak and euphoria, of a lonely hospital room that turned into a stage for the biggest surprise of her life. People listened with rapt attention. Some would tear up at her descriptions of how the sport had knitted her family closer, how her devotion was a tribute to someone she loved, and how faith sometimes brings marvels to your doorstep. Eventually, a small plaque indeed appeared on one of the arena walls reading, "Evelyn Carter, a fan whose heart never quit." She took a modest photo next to it wearing the old cap that Michael Jordan had finally autographed. The lights from the overhead scoreboard reflected in her eyes. The photograph ended up in newspapers across the country. The older woman leaning on a cane, her spirit shining brighter than the brightest overhead bulb. She concluded her speeches in a way that always moved the crowd. She would say, "One missed game does not undo a lifetime of love. Whatever your dream, keep it close even if you stumble or fall. My biggest heartbreak turned into my biggest blessing." The lesson resonated far beyond basketball. People with different pursuits reflected on her story, recognizing that dedication is less about perfection and more about devotion that endures challenges along the way. Evelyn discovered an unexpected joy in sharing her wisdom and bonding with fans in her city who also found hope in the magic of sports. On one particular night near the end of that Comets season, she gathered some neighborhood kids in her living room to watch an important playoff match. The children wore brand new Comets jerseys and had homemade signs declaring the team unstoppable. As the lights dimmed on the TV broadcast, Evelyn looked around and felt a surge of gratitude. She was no longer alone. This was a family, a community of dreamers. The Comets eventually lost that playoff series, but Evelyn still rejoiced in the energy and unity they brought out in everyone. She used that moment to gently teach the kids about resilience. She told them that you will face your own tests in life, but keep showing up. The scoreboard does not always show your biggest triumphs. By the final buzzer, they were hugging and praising the team for giving them so many thrilling moments. That was the magic that had carried her through 4 decades, this unstoppable wave of shared emotion that soared well beyond the game clock. In time, Evelyn's story would become a cherished tale in Milltown, a reminder that genuine loyalty and love can bring about remarkable surprises. She had once believed her greatest claim to fame was never missing a game, but found that her real legacy was the kindness, support, and inspiration she ignited in others. If you're hearing this right now, I hope it stirs a spark within you. Maybe it's not basketball for you, maybe it's music, painting, or a dream to open your own small business. Whatever it is, remember that one unexpected detour can lead to an extraordinary new chapter. Sometimes, missing what you thought was the most important moment opens a doorway you never saw before. Let this be your reminder to pause and ask, what drives me forward? What am I willing to pour my heart into, no matter the hurdles? If you've ever held on to a dream so tightly that giving up was never an option, I want to hear your story. Share it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Motivation for Success. We all need each other's strength in this unpredictable journey called life. Look to Evelyn Carter's unwavering devotion as proof. No matter how many times you stumble, if you believe with your entire being, you'll forge connections and stumble onto surprises that can carry you far beyond the limits you once imagined. Let her story remind you that true passion, when nurtured, can transform everything, even the darkest days, into an opportunity for hope and triumph.